We have a very special treat today because we have one of the leaders of a major nonviolent campaign with us in the person of Barrister Alan Onima from Nigeria. And he's the one that started the nonviolent campaign modeled after Martin Luther King's philosophy of nonviolence. And by employing that concept and theory in Nigeria, he was able to stop the violence between militant groups and the government and make some important nonviolent transformation in the Niger Delta area. So again, we're pleased to have you here as our special guest. We also have joining us Charles Alphen, and Charles Alphen Sr. Is our foremost nonviolence trainer, trained the trainers and set up institutions around the world. And he's here with us. He was one of the major people who did the training in Nigeria during that period. And this is a model example of what Martin Luther King wanted to happen. So this is the fulfillment of one of the dreams that Martin Luther King had. So with that, I wanted to start off with saying to you, Alan, we just welcome you. What we'd like for you to do is to share with us how you started thinking about this idea of bringing nonviolence to Nigeria. What was it that caused you to want to do this? And share with us some of the previous experiences that you had in social change.
Thank you, Doc. I think peace building is in my blood. I see it as a calling for me, and it makes me happy to touch lives. I love peace, everything I do. So sometime in 2003, I looked around me and saw a lot of bloodshed in my country, a lot of killings, a lot of religious riots, ethnic riots. For instance, Nigeria is a country of about 378 ethnic nationalities. And because of our diversity, instead of it being a kind of advantage to the country, it turned out to be something like a curse. But I tried to see if I could turn that around. So I took a tour of the entire 36 states of Nigeria, preaching peace, preaching harmony, using my organization, the Foundation for Ethnic Harmony in Nigeria, which I founded. In doing that, I financed the entire thing myself. The government didn't help. I approached the government with my ideas. They didn't help. So sometime in 2004, I started thinking about how to effectively curb the incidence of violence in our national life. And the research took me to your person. But though I didn't know I would be able to attract someone of your stature to Nigeria to come and work with us. So I saw on the internet, University of Rhode Island Center for Nonviolence and Peace Studies, having a summer camp for nonviolence program. So I decided I should be part of that program. My staff should be part of that program. So the first thing I did was to apply. When we applied, we were told to do not less than 400 pages of why we wanted to come to the United States to understudy nonviolence. And we did that, we passed, we were given admission by your center. But the United States Embassy didn't want to give us visas. We tried again, they turned us down. We couldn't come to the United States to get trained. And I wrote you that you should please come over to Nigeria. It's not about coming to the United States. We are not interested. We were not interested in coming to the States other than coming here to study nonviolence. Because I knew that Mahatma Gandhi used nonviolence to bring about social change in India. He never encouraged his followers to shoot or to kill anyone to bring about social change. So I knew the power in the nonviolence philosophy. I also remember that Lech Wałęsa of Poland used nonviolence to bring down the all-powerful communism in Poland using his solidarity group. So over time, I knew it was going to work for Nigeria. If only I could get the master to come and spearhead it. And the master is you. So it took a lot of time, convincing, and one day you wrote me, you said you will come to Nigeria. I want to see this living Dr. Martin Luther King of Nigeria who is persistent. And when you wrote me, I celebrated your email that you will be coming. I told everybody in the country. That was why when you guys came to Nigeria, on that first day, the first day you set foot on Nigerian soil, you could see a lot of pressmen, television, they came to see you. They came to see this man who worked with Dr. King in the civil rights days in America. So that was how it started. But you know, before you came to Nigeria, oil prices dipped to about 600,000 barrels per day. From 3 million barrels of crude oil production, it went down to 600,000 because the militants were blowing up the oil installations, they were kidnapping foreign oil workers, they were killing people with reckless abandon, demanding ransoms going into millions of dollars. Most oil companies like Chevron, Shell, Total, Elf, they were all taking flight out of Nigeria. The Nigerian economy was being disturbed. At the same time, here in America, you guys were feeling the pinch because, you know, Nigeria has the sweetest crude oil. The best crude oil comes from Nigeria, not Saudi Arabia. So it was affecting oil prices in the United States. And when you came, you remember what you said at the airport? You said Nigeria will never be the same again. Mm-hmm. That the Niger Delta will never be the same again. And it came to pass because of the program. The moment the oil companies knew you were in Nigeria, they started sending the militants, appealing to them to go to this program. They thought it was a trap to get them arrested at first. So only very few courageous ones started the program. Then we started going to the creeks of the Niger Delta to pull up, talk to families, talk to parents, and they agreed to send their kids who were involved in violence to the program. And a lot of them started dropping the guns for nonviolence. And when they came to the program got them arrested, not the police. The Nigerian military, the Nigerian police, the international community couldn't stop militancy. You guys did, using nonviolence education.
Now, that first training we had, wasn't the army and the police and the militants all in one classroom?
Yeah.
And you had been able to, you make it sound so easy, but I remember you took us down to Shell. Shell was one of the first oil companies that released, 10 or 15 of the top leaders. Yeah. And when the top leaders saw that this was not a sham and it could be useful, then they encouraged their followers to come. Well, that was a strategy, and you make it seem simple, but you did a lot of legwork.
At first, the leaders wanted to kill me.
Yeah.
And that was why Shell was putting me in different hotel rooms with different names. They could put me, say, Hilton Hotel, give me about 20 rooms with different names, and go to another hotel and properly house me to protect my life and that of my family. So it wasn't just that easy as it sounded, because there were a lot of people in Nigeria who didn't want violent militancy to end because they were making millions of dollars out of it. They were taking the crude oil from source and selling to Americans, to Russians, and all manner of people. And they were making cool money, and they didn't want the militancy to stop. So they were after me. They were after me. So it wasn't that easy. And of course, by extension, even you guys were not that safe. But I don't know what was working for you.
Now you tell us. Now you.
But I couldn't have said all that because that would have scared the hell out of you. But that was why Shell sent helicopter to come and pick you the other time. They didn't want you to go by road. Right. Those were the reasons. They sent helicopter to come and take you.
But Alan, you're not from the Niger Delta, but you were able to talk to the militants from the Niger Delta, and that's a form of leadership that you exhibited because you're not from the Niger Delta.
Yeah, that's the power in nonviolence. If you understand the principles and practices of nonviolence and you employ it in your dealings with common folks or anybody, it's going to work. It's going to work. I'm not from Niger Delta, but they showed me love because I showed them real love. I didn't condemn them. Nonviolence does not condemn anybody. Remember, principle 3, attack forces of evil and not persons doing evil. So you always try to find out reasons why people do some stuff and try to address those reasons. And you get the person coming to you. For the first time in their lives, they saw truth. Some other programs came to them, bogey programs, just to get money from government or get money from oil companies. Those other programs had no impact on them. For once, they saw a program that was really transformative. One thing you have to understand is that everyone in violence wants out of violence. The armed robber, the kidnapper, the suicide bomber, they don't like what they are doing. It's just that they don't know how to take themselves out of the clutches of violence. So they continue doing what they are doing. So nonviolence education provides for them, a route, to liberation from the clutches of violence. So a lot of them give it up and they embrace it. They love it. And at a time, the leaders themselves now started making approaches. Look, our boys are better than us. They are living good lives. They've given it up. We want to be like them. That was when the former president, President Yaradua, may his soul rest in peace, the one that died in power, decided to send for me. Gentlemen, we learned that you are doing this. How do you do it? No, it's just nonviolence education. You give it to them, they embrace it, and it works. They now call Timi Alaibe, the former managing director of Niger Delta Development Corporation, that they should finance it. So the financing came from the presidency of Nigeria for us to train the 600 commanders. And how did the 600 commanders come? The president begged the militant leaders, please embrace this program. Maybe when you go to this program, you employ another method of agitation that is constructive, that is not destructive. The leaders never wanted to go. They thought it was a ploy to get all of them rounded up and arrested. So they sent 600 commanders made up by the worst of their boys, who they wanted to get rid of. They wanted to get rid of those boys because they were troublesome. So they now sent those ones to our program. It was the transformation of those 600 that made the president of Nigeria to proclaim amnesty for the militants, believing that if he should give amnesty to them, that's pardon. The Foundation for Ethnic Harmony in Nigeria, headed by Alan Oyema, with the program facilitated by Dr. Bernard LaFayette, will be able to train and transform them. That was why they gave them amnesty, and you ended up training 30,000 militants under the presidential amnesty. 30,000.
You trained 30,000?
30,000 was registered. That was the ones you trained in Obobra, Cross River State.
But Alan, that was not easy because the community did not want us in there for that retreat for the training, right?
Yeah.
And it took us, 2 years, 3 years to train 30,000?
Yeah.
So you had to orchestrate all of that. And then once they got through, the government did what? Once they got through the training, the nonviolence training?
I had to, before we went into Obobra, I had to do some kind of public relations, job. I had to assure the government of that state. In Nigeria, just like in the United States, we run a federal system. You people have about 52 or 50 states. We have 36 states. So every state, has some level of autonomy. So they didn't want us to come and do those programs in their states because they felt that the name militants might destroy the tourism industry of their state. But I had to take it to them, pleaded with them. I did a lot of work before the state government of Cross River allowed us to come in the state of Cross River.
Tell me, Alan, where is the amnesty program now in terms of those 30,000 or so that were trained? The amnesty program guaranteed that if they got through the nonviolence training, then they would give them job opportunities, training, and they would give them education. And that's,
yes.
So you talk a little bit about that and where it is now.
Yes, when you train them in Cross River, the first transformational program, the package from the government was that after training, and you sign, you signed every certificate. If you didn't sign, anybody without your signature on his certificate could not travel out of the country. Because that was a guarantee that he is a changed person. Your signature was a guarantee that he is a changed person. That was why the embassies all over the world, including the United States of America, was giving them visas to come for training. So the government had a package to train them. A lot of them are pilots today, flying planes. These were people whose lives were totally forgotten. People whose lives were condemned by all over the world. People who actually condemned themselves, who never knew, who lacked self-worth. They never knew they had any worth in them. They had given up. They had taken negativity as part of them. They never believed in themselves. They believed they were no do-gooders. They believed they were not good at all. But the nonviolence program made them to understand that, look, there's some good, even in your overwhelming vice, there's some good in you. That was what the nonviolence program restored their self-worth. It restored their perception of themselves as human beings. And that helped them to be able to aspire to do more things. Today we have those boys, some of them who couldn't read and write at first, becoming welders and artisans of different types, plumbers. Some today are pilots, flying aircraft. I have one of them flying for me. He's a first officer now, flying in Air Peace, my airline. So a lot of them are in different places. Some are in the United States, in maritime schools, and some are in aeronautical schools. Remember, the militants, even the illiterate ones, went through examinations to pass the nonviolence course before being certified by you.
And Alan, I learned so much. This is why I do this kind of training. One thing I learned when I was in Nigeria, those who couldn't read and write, they used to carry the book on their head, hoping that the knowledge would get there. Okay? But remember that one group of them came 2 days after we started the training, and the question was whether we're going to allow them, particularly if they can't read and write, to get in this program or oral exams. Mm-hmm. And you know what I discovered, Alan? That when they could not review the lectures and the teaching that we gave them, because they couldn't read and write, they had to remember everything we said. And you know how they remembered that? This is something I learned, although I'm in education, has a doctorate, in education and all that kind of stuff. What I learned from them is that if you put the sound together, so they put it in tunes. They took the lyrics and the words that we were saying and put it in the form of music. Mm-hmm. And so what they would do is sing the principles and sing the steps.
Singing. They were singing with the principles and the steps. They were singing.
And we had them teaching some of the others, those who couldn't even read and write.
And you remember before they got transformed, they never liked the Nigerian nation because they were at war with the Nigerian nation.
Yeah.
They never obeyed Nigeria's national anthem. And they never liked soldiers or policemen. But remember what happened in the camp? They were the first to sing the national anthem. When they got transformed, they decided to embrace soldiers. Soldiers with their guns were coming to the classroom with them and studying with them, drop their guns. Before then, those boys could have picked the guns and killed the soldiers. But the soldiers dropped guns and joined them in the training, and it was love everywhere. There's so much power in nonviolence.
In the ceremonies, when I attended the ceremonies, the soldiers were teaching them how to discipline themselves with marching. And I thought those were the soldiers, and those were the militants the soldiers are teaching them how to be a soldier. And I thought, wow, okay, so you saw that type of transformation with people who used to kill each other, and now they were working together with each other. And then I was just shocked to see that.
And you remember, most of them belonged to rival militant groups. Yeah. Very rival, fierce, rival groups that could kill each other, but they came together in the same camp. And we all coexisted over 2 years or 3 years.
Now, it wasn't an easy, there was conflict. Now, we had to use nonviolent tough love, but...
It wasn't easy. Remember the day there was this day all of us almost lost our lives when they rioted. And,
they thought the money had been taken.
Yeah.
And we just happened to be there at nighttime. And they shook the bus. In fact,
a government official came. That was what happened. A government official came and they posed a question to him. How about we learned, because they are fond of rumors, they posed a question asking the government official, did you bring we learned that we are all entitled to $1 million each.
$1 million?
$1 million each. Never. And the man said, never. Nobody approved that kind of money for you. And hell, let loose. That was when they wanted to kill him and kill everybody. Yeah. Because somebody had, that information got to them from a political rival of the chairman of the amnesty team. A political rival wanted to cause strife in the camp and gave out information that so much money had been approved for the militants. False, very false information for that. So when they didn't get the money, they decided to kill.
So we had to deal with violence even in the midst of training them in nonviolence. And the way we handled it was also part of the lesson that they learned.
It wasn't easy that night. We had about 3,500 ex-combatants.
Yes.
Surrounding us, all of us, in the camp that day.
Mm-hmm. But the people we had trained took us out of there. They surrounded the bus and took us out, the ones that we had relationships with. And they respected, they looked in the bus and saw us. And I think they were looking for the government officials because they knew we were part of the training, but it was tense. But the young people the leaders that we had trained, that's what nonviolence does, it trains leaders, they took us out at camp.
Well, tell me this, Alan, we had these different religious groups there as well. We had the Muslims and we had the Christians, the evangelicals and stuff like that. How do you explain that they all were willing to come together like that through the training?
First of all, you have to let everybody know the goal. What is your goal here? The goal was not about their religion or their political inclinations. The most important thing for everybody then was transformation. And they knew they set their eyes and their minds on the goal. So religion took a backstage. Nobody talked about religion. They were ready to work together to achieve a common goal, which is a transformation, because they wanted to leave behind the life of violence. So it was very easy to get them to focus on the goal. And that was one thing we did with them. But the most important thing that worked for us was the people you trained before the amnesty program. Before the amnesty program of 30,000 ex-militants, you had trained over 4,000 ex-militants before then. It was the transformation of the ones you trained, the ones you trained before amnesty that gave rise to the amnesty. So we used those ones we trained before to work. We brought them in as staff. They became your staff and my staff. So at all times, the new ones were looking up to them. They wanted to be like them. So it worked. The power of nonviolence. Not only did the power of nonviolence transform the militants, it transformed the perception of the international community of the boys. It transformed the perception of the United States Embassy about us. Remember, the U.S. Embassy and U.S. government started attending our programs. They were coming there, they saw it firsthand, and they reported back home. Some of them, I saw some of them in WikiLeaks about all their reports, and they were filing back home to the State Department. So they saw for themselves. They didn't give me visa when I applied in 2005 to come for your program. But today, all U.S. ambassadors come to my office. You see the transformation. So I owe it to God Almighty, but at the same time, God provided nonviolence philosophy and principles and practices to make it happen. So it's a very powerful program that should be internationalized and institutionalized everywhere in the world. It has been internationalized and institutionalized in the Niger Delta, and they have it to reap. They have peace there. Oil production has gone back to 3 million barrels per day because of the transformation you gave them. So Niger Delta is never the same after you came.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate you being here and making the sacrifice to take time out of your schedule, important schedule, to share this with us and to share it with the world. And the example that you have used and the work that you're doing, even now, while you're on your own airline, you're showing them that nothing is impossible once they set their minds to it. We can't thank you enough, Alan.
Thank you.
The world needs to know about this.
Thank you very much.